Welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello and welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. I am Blake Harrison and joining me is the champ has a name and it's Charles Oliveira. No, it's not. If anyone listening to the podcast, it's Stu Whiffin, unfortunately. But you've got a lovely tan and a bright bleach blonde barnet. What's going on with him?
I just wanted to go Blonde Brunson. I just wanted to do it.
Your full blonde brother or Dan Hooker, either way.
Or Dan Hooker. I mean, we'll talk about Dan Hooker later, I'm sure.
It does look very Charles Oliveira, or at least like you look like one of his coaches. Like when they all dye their hair blonde, because you're very tanned as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've both been on holiday. That's why this episode's coming a little bit late. And bizarrely, we was both on holiday on two separate islands, very close to each other. So we did toy with the idea of trying to do a post-fight, a post-Volk show. But I think I looked at the ferry times and it was 4 hours, so it just wasn't possible. But
lack of commitment from Whiffin, lack of commitment there. You heard it from the champ's mouth. You heard it from his mouth. Like a 4-hour ferry ride. Nah, fuck that, mate. I just
in honesty, I dyed my hair grey because my beard's very grey and my hair's getting grey, and so I thought, right, I'm just gonna get it dyed grey. And halfway through the process, the guy that was doing my hair went, and obviously we have to dye it peroxide white first, and then we add the grey, and then that'll leave you grey. And I was like, fantastic. He said it probably lasts about a week, and I was like, what? And he went, yeah, what? Nothing sticks to peroxide, so your greys lasts about a week. And I was like, oh no. And so needless to say, I then got on an aeroplane, and within like 2 days, like there was no grey left on my head, and the sun just absolutely smashed my hair to this kind of white colour that you're looking at the moment.
Why did you decide to dye your hair grey?
Because I was going grey, and I like
just
grey.
Let it go grey.
No, because that's the process is too long, and I like grey. Probably also hides where it's thinning as well. So and the blonde does a great job of hiding that. So that's kind of what's not helped is like my tan can only be compared to the cover of Sexy Beast by featuring Ray Winston. I am like a ridiculously I'm an Essex boy, so I've literally gone full Essex fake tan, although mine is legit, which makes the white hair look even more ridiculous. I look like a kind of a Muppet that they didn't actually use in any of the Muppet films. Like it's like we can't use that. The eyebrows are different colour to the hair. It's weird. So that's me for those that I'm watching on YouTube. So I take it you spent your holiday under an umbrella.
Basically, mate, you know, it sounds weird. This room always makes me look paler than what I actually am. I mean, I'm naturally very pale anyway, but I'm actually slightly tanned at the moment. Like, okay. You think this is so pale, but I'm actually slightly tanned at the moment, believe it or not. But yeah, we were in Sardinia, and obviously, like, my wife's ginger, I'm very pale, the kids are very pale, so we were just shade and factor 50 all day long. But it was lovely. We had a lovely time. We were going to put out a post saying, "Oh, sorry, we haven't done a post 290 show because we're both on holiday," and I was like, oh no, I don't want to advertise my house is empty. So, because I grew up in Peckham, so my whole life has been like, if we ever went away, it was like, right, Matt, just leave that whole light on, leave it on. And
look, you're talking to me like I was brought up in the Cotswolds, like.
Well, Essex to Peckham, there's a big difference. I mean, not now, obviously Peckham's a different place, but Peckham in the 90s, it's like you did everything you could to make it look like you had a dangerous dog and your house was always full of people.
I love to think as you've gone away, your house is essentially Home Alone. There's just like kind of moving figurines in the windows.
Christmas music playing in the middle of July. Yeah. A big cardboard cutout of Michael Jordan just roaming the house. Perfect.
Oh, fantastic! But we're here now, and we got to have a little catch up this morning, and we was like, let's jump on and turn this one around quick because there's so much to talk about. So this episode today is a real sort of catch up, but we're going to talk about the fact that it's been announced that Tyson Fury is going to fight Francis Ngannou, which, whether you like these hybrid fights or not, it's huge news in combat sports. So we can't not talk about that. We're going to talk about the fact that MVP's been released from Bellator, so he's currently a free agent. So we're going to look at what possibilities there might be, what we'd like to see him do. Obviously, we're going to touch upon this weekend's card. We're going to Media Day tomorrow. So by the time this podcast comes out, we'll probably be in London at Media Day, getting to interview the fighters, which we're very excited about. And then Saturday, we should be at the O2 doing what we do there. So we'll touch upon what's going to be happening in London. And obviously, we've not had a chance yet to discuss what happened. I know it's old news now, but there's still some great fights, featuring Volk and Dan Hooker and such from 290, wasn't it? Yeah. And,
yes.
So there's lots to chat about. So should we start with Fury Ngannou?
Yeah. My initial reaction to the whole thing was just I was so pleased for Francis. Like as a sporting event, if I'm perfectly honest, I couldn't care less. Like I have everyone that's listened to this podcast for a long time knows that I'm not a huge boxing fan. I find it too one-dimensional when compared to MMA. And these types of fights where an MMA fighter goes on over to fight a genuine good boxer, and in this case, we're talking about the greatest heavyweight of our generation or whatever. I just see it being non-competitive, a walkover for Tyson Fury, and I have no interest in that. I want to see even matchups where you just don't know what's going to happen, and it's the best fight in the best. That's what I'm truly interested in. So this, I have no real interest in as a fan, but as a fan of Francis Ngannou and having watched what's happened with him over the last year or so, with his leaving the UFC, becoming a free agent, moving to the PFL and all those things, and the backlash from fans of him leaving the UFC and joining the PFL and stuff like that, I'm actually really pleased for him. Really, really pleased for him. So I'm glad he's getting his huge money fight. He's getting his boxing fight. And it seems like it probably couldn't happen to maybe a nicer bloke. He seems like a really top guy. Obviously, unbelievable story of coming from the sand mines of Cameroon, making that crossing in like a dinghy that nearly killed him on multiple occasions, ending up in a kind of, I don't know if you would call it prison, but where they would keep illegal immigrants over in Spain, I believe it was. And then hopping on a train without a ticket to Paris, ending up homeless in a car park, being found by Fernando Lopez and taken into the gym over in Paris, and then going on to become a UFC champion and stuff. Like it's an unbelievable story. It is a movie waiting to happen. And so just super excited for Francis. What were your initial thoughts when it came out, the news?
Right. So if we talk about boxers fighting MMA fighters, so, in boxing, we've seen your Vitors and your Anderson Silvers, and yes, they were all former legends, and the boxers they were fighting were solid boxers, and if you look at Conor versus Mayweather, it was a Mayweather past his peak, and I think Conor gave a very good account of himself in that fight. I thought he'd done a lot better than I thought he was going to do. But for this, I see this a little different. I see this as I do. The idiot in me loves. We're going to find out who the baddest man on the planet is. I know we're not in Francis's, chosen skill set, but Francis could knock him out. Francis is anyone, he can knock him out. It can happen, right? And that's a cold fact, right? But
I wonder if that hairdo is affecting your brain. Like the peroxide has trickled into the brain cells.
It can happen. It's heavyweight boxing. It's one shot. It always happens. It can happen. I'm concerned you know, obviously Tyson Fury, he's a monster of a man and moves like a middleweight. And I do think he will move, jab, and completely outbox him. But yeah, the child in me wants to see who the baddest man on the planet is. But incredible for Francis. I think when they make the movie, this is an amazing bit to add to it as well. But where I think this falls apart is what it means for heavyweight boxing. It's a sham for heavyweight boxing. You've got to look at Usyk, right? So Usyk, you know, should be fighting Tyson Fury. That's the fight that needs to happen. And if that doesn't happen to unify the division, then he should be fighting an Anthony Joshua, which is a huge fan fight. And there's obviously lots of other fighters that are causing scenes in, you know, he can't fight Wilder again. Obviously, we don't want to see him fight bloody, what do you call it, Derek Chisora. You know, there's some poor choices of opponents there. But I think it doesn't reflect very well on heavyweight boxing. I think this is something. This is a spectacle, isn't it? And it's, you know, and we should make it clear that if Francis wins, he's not the heavyweight boxing champion of the world. The title is not on the line. And so it's not an exhibition match. It goes on their records. So I think that's quite important. And yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of these hybrid fights, but I'm not going to moan about it because I know I'm going to watch it. And I'm going to be, you know, it's going to be a spectacle that I don't want to miss. And I do think if he lands a lucky shot, because he's got big, heavy hands. Deontay Wilder's got ridiculously heavy hands, and literally how on earth Tyson Fury got up from being hit that hard, you know, that's got to be something that Francis is going to think, Christ, yeah, he got hit with a sledgehammer and got back up and then nearly knocked Deontay Wilder out and went on to win the fight. I'm not the biggest Tyson Fury fan, but as a heavyweight boxer, I do think he's up there with one of the greatest of all time. He's, you know, his record is undeniable. You know, the guy's unbeaten, and I think this makes for an interesting spectacle, and it's lovely to see. You know, I would like to have seen when that fight got announced, rather than seeing Francis's joy or Tyson Fury's kind of smug, like, this is going to be special. I'd like to have seen Dana White's face. I'd like to have seen had Dana reacted to that. You know, I'm surprised he didn't announce George St. Pierre versus Anderson Silva or something like that in a heartbeat. Like, I was expecting some Conor news. I thought he was going to announce Conor Chandler date or something like that. You know, to take the eyes away from what had happened there. But yeah, it's a spectacle, and I'm going to watch it.
Right. I mean, I don't know if it is so much of a spectacle, is it? The Conor Mayweather one was a huge spectacle because Conor was such a big crossover star. Ngannou to us is this amazing star, like most powerful puncher in MMA. But to the casual combat sports fan or the casual boxing fan,
no, I
don't know that.
I disagree on boxing fans.
You think the casual boxing fan is interested in Francis Ngannou?
The marketing for it's going to be huge, right? And it's the heavyweight champion of the world. This is Rocky
so they're interested
Thunder
in Tyson Fury, but Thunder Lips, fucking hell. But it's not. But that's the thing. It's not, though, is it? Fucking. That's a great reference, by the way. There's going to be so many young people listening. It's just like, what the fuck is Thunder Lips?
Go watch Rocky 3.
Yes, this is the start of Rocky 3, isn't it?
Yeah, Hulk Hogan, I love it.
It's great. You and your blonde people today, you're loving it. Any inspiration from blonde men, you're all over it.
I'm going to finish this show by ripping my shirt.
Please do. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of like seeing who the baddest man on the planet is, they've missed a trick because this is just a boxing match. You can't find out who the baddest man on the planet is in a boxing match because there's too many rules. So I just completely shut off from that idea of. And if they market it like that, I'm going to get pissed off. Because if it's like, we're going to finally see who the baddest man on the planet is, me, Tyson Fury, the lineal heavyweight champion, and Francis Ngannou, the former UFC champ, and he was never beaten. He's the lineal MMA champion, all that stuff. Like, whatever. We're going to see the baddest man. No, we're not. We're going to see a man that does one sport beat a man that doesn't do that sport at the sport that he does so well. Sure. Like, if that makes it, like that's nothing. What they should be doing, in my opinion, to make this more exciting, to make this a spectacle, is go, all right,
blindfold them.
We'll do it with blindfold them and give them like weapon. No, sellotape like big sticks to their hands. No, what they should do, in my opinion, is do it in 4-ounce gloves and allow kicks as well. So it becomes a kickboxing match in 4-ounce gloves. Now, that means that Francis can't use all of his skills, but Tyson has to deal with Francis being able to use some of his skills, and it's in 4-ounce gloves. So it's probably going to be over pretty quickly because the way these two punch, and you can't use the gloves to protect yourself quite so much, like something like that. And just for shits and giggles, put it in a cage.
Yeah.
Like just do that for fun. Because I don't know how much difference that would make or wouldn't make. But if you really want to see who the baddest man, again, I'm not saying Tyson Fury should go into MMA. If he fights MMA, he's going to probably get smashed because someone's going to take him down and mash him up. And again, when there was the rumors of the John Jones Tyson Fury fight that Dana White wanted to happen a little while ago, Dana White was saying, if he really wants to know who the baddest man in the planet is, let's do Tyson versus Jones in the UFC. It's like, well, we know who's going to win that already. That's pointless. But doing a sort of genuinely doing a hybrid fight, I would watch that. Fury versus Ngannou. If I'm in someone's house and they're going to pay for it or whatever, I'll watch it. Otherwise, I'll probably just find out about it through Twitter. I'm not going to pay my money to watch Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury. I'm not doing it. But if they'd have done some kind of genuine hybrid fight that made it unique, just complete. We've seen MMA fighters go over to boxing. We know how the story goes. Do something different. Do something unique. Make it fun. That's what I think they should have done. Make it more fun. Actually make it a hybrid fight rather than just an MMA fighter going over to boxing.
Do you know what's crazy? The one success story in all of this, Mike Perry. It's crazy.
But again, he's not going over to fight boxers, is he?
No. I'll tell you what, I listened to Mike Perry on Rogan, and he was talking about the differences between boxing and bare knuckle. And it was actually quite an interesting listen. But see, when you said about allow kicking, right? What's weird is my go-to thing was, well, Francis will smash Tyson Fury to smash his legs to pieces, and you know that's not fair. But then it is fair because it's you're meeting halfway, right? Because other than that, it's Tyson Fury doing what he does, and he's not just like a good boxer; he's the best, one of the best ever.
Best.
Like, so yeah,
and it's not like Francis is known for his kicks. He's not a heavyweight Edson Barbosa. He's not known for his kick. I know he can kick, and obviously Tyson would have to spend some time learning how to check a kick. On that point,
what's Francis known for?
Big heavy hands.
Heavyweight boxing.
You're just saying that to wind me up. He's known for big heavy hands. Tyson's dealt with people with big heavy hands that are like Francis Ngannou taking on probably Derek Chisora now is probably like Derek Chisora will probably smash him up in a boxing match because Derek knows what he's doing more in a boxing match. Dillian White would probably smash Francis Ngannou up in a boxing match because, so then when you put Tyson Fury against Francis Ngannou, a guy that's beat all those guys a few times over, it just seems pointless to me. I don't get it. I'm not into it.
One more thing on this fight, okay? And I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'll watch it because I think it is a spectacle. I'm not excited about it, and I think as a boxing fan, I do not think it reflects well on the heavyweight boxing scene. So this fight's happened, right? It's agreed. What would have been a better fight for Francis Ngannou? as a fighter in the PFL, what would have been a better option?
Oh, but I'm not arguing that. Like for Francis Ngannou, that's why I started this episode by saying I was so pleased for Francis.
Sure.
That's because the I saw some figures recently. Someone put out that Francis is only going to make $8 million for this Tyson Fury fight. And then that was disputed because the UFC offered him $8 million to fight John Jones. Now, from what I've heard, that whole 8 million figure is a load of nonsense. And I think Ariel Helwani tweeted something similar, that from talking to Ngannou's managers, he doesn't know the exact figure, but he's more likely to be getting 8 figures, not 8 million, but 8 figures to fight Tyson Fury. So my whole thing is, I'm happy for Francis. If your team, Francis Ngannou, you have smashed it. You could not have done any better. You've left the UFC as a free agent, as the UFC champion. You've gone over to make much more money in the PFL, and also, I think, look really brilliant by fighting for the rights of other fighters.
Of course.
And you've landed the fight no one thought you could land. You've landed the biggest money fight you can in Tyson Fury, which some people are estimating could be, for that one fight, more money than he made in his whole UFC career. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I think he's could not have done better. There's not a fight in the UFC that would have paid him this much.
He ain't going to get that fight in Tank Abbott in the PFL, mate.
No, well, no, of course not. But he wouldn't have got it in the UFC either. Like, he could not have done any better. If you're Team Francis, you have absolutely smashed this. And any talk about him, quote unquote, fumbling the bag when he left the UFC and no one was after him, and one championship was saying when he was after too much money, and people were moaning about him and all this kind of stuff. And obviously people saying, oh, he ran from John Jones, when actually John Jones could have fought him for 2.5, 3 years, whatever it was, but decided not to move up to heavyweight until Francis had left. So all that stuff, I'm really happy for Francis. I think he's been through the mill with it. We know the story about him being on the way to the fight against Cyril Gane when he had one knee. He had one knee going into that fight. And he goes into the fight against Cyril Gane and gets a message, email or whatever sent to his manager or whatever about them suing him, because the UFC suing Francis because he's had a chat with the guy that owns Triller, Jake Paul's boxing or former boxing thing or whatever it is, about something, even though it was just a chat. It was nothing official, nothing. So they really tried to put it on Francis a lot. And he's come out of it absolutely smelling the roses. And as you say, the face that you would have wanted to see when that was announced was probably Dana White's.
Yeah. And I hope that gives inspiration to other UFC champs, that they can change their destiny. They can go elsewhere and facilitate, other things. It's not all, to be controlled by Dana's wallet. So, yeah. Well, one of the other things that popped up in the news this week, which could lead to a hybrid fight. I'm talking about MVP being released from his contract with Bellator. And we've obviously seen MVP box on one of the David Haye promotions. So, we've seen him and get a win.
And bare knuckle, where he lost to Mike Perry, wasn't it?
Of course. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
So my initial thoughts are he's probably not going to go to bare knuckle. But so I want to know where you think and where you'd like to see him go, because I think maybe 5-6 years ago, around the time of the Cyborg knockout and that highlight reel that was, untouched really in Bellator, I'd like to have seen him go to the UFC and see what he could have done. I'm a big fan of MVP, but I'm not sure that him moving to the UFC now will be as much of a big deal as it would have been maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago.
No. Look, he is, I think, 36 years old. He's only got 2 losses on his record. One to Douglas Lima, a loss that he avenged.
Yeah.
And then recently Logan Storley, big wrestler, and that's just one of those things. I think he's still got a lot to offer. Yeah, I mean, it's a split decision. I think he's still got a lot to offer.
Yeah.
I don't think he would challenge for the title in the UFC. I think the UFC has got too many very, very strong wrestlers in the welterweight division, whether it be Colby, Kamaru Usman, Hamzat Chimaev, Rakhmonov, Shavkat Rakhmonov, amongst a few others. So I don't think I would see him challenging for the belt. And sadly, I don't think the UFC would pay him what other organizations would, whether it be the PFL or One Championship. I can see him going to One Championship or maybe the PFL. And I think both of those organizations would be lucky to have him. I think he'd be a fantastic asset to them, especially if he can put a couple of wins together and get some highlight reel knockouts in, say, the PFL, and they can put that out there on ESPN and wherever else they do their stuff. I think that would be great for them. As a fan of Michael Venom Page, I do want to see him in the UFC because I think there's a few fights there that would just be absolutely fantastic to watch. And I think, the dream fight, and has been for many, many, many years when he was in Bellator, and if it is Michael Venom Page against Wonderboy.
Yeah.
That's the dream fight. Those two, it's like kind of like the Spider-Man meme type thing. Those two karate style guys bouncing around on their toes against each other. It'd be like watching a karate combat type fight or something like it would be super fun to watch that. Obviously, Wonderboy is coming up against Michel Pereira, which is another fight I'm super excited about. I love Michel Pereira. I think there's welterweight fights out there for MVP that could be loads of fun in the UFC. And that's where I'd really want him to go. But I fear that for someone like Michael Venom Page, even in his kind of later years at the age of 36, I think the UFC would look at that and go, do we want to pay big money for this guy? They'd probably offer him a contract because they know he'd be good to have in the UFC for certain fights. But I don't think they'll pay him the kind of money that One Championship or PFL would pay him.
Yeah.
And so I think he'd end up at those organizations and not in the UFC, which would be in some ways a real shame, but for him, really good. He goes and makes money and stuff. So
yeah, I mean,
well, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I think people underestimate some of these kind of smaller, or I say smaller, One and PFL. They're not small, but they're smaller than the UFC. I think people underestimate the talent in those organizations, but there's no disputing it's an easier run at the belt.
Yeah,
going to the PFL or One Championship.
Potential hybrid fights as well in One Championship as well. What we've seen Demetrius Johnson doing. So there is, I'd love to see that sort of karate style against a Muay Thai fighter. I'd be really intrigued to see how that would play out. I think the child in me is always wanting to see different styles of fighters fight each other. And to see the Muay Thai versus kickboxing, whatever you want to, or karate, whatever you want to sort of tag MVP as. I think there's some interesting things at One. I don't think at One or PFL it does his stock as a big name any huge favours. I think Bellator, at the moment, is probably safe to say certainly in MMA is the second biggest organisation, and I think you're seeing so many of the UFC fighters go to Bellator, and so he didn't say that he's not going to go back to Bellator. He said that just his contract ended, so I think he's just saying, to quote him, I think I'm unemployed and let's have a look what's on the table. And like you say, I don't think in any of them, in all them other organisations, whether it be Bellator, One or PFL, they're going to, I would presume, offer him bigger money than what the UFC is, because he's got potential to be a champion in them. He's back, his highlight reel is so marketable. I do think the UFC could do an amazing job marketing him with that highlight reel and set up some fun fights. But I think maybe the businessman in MVP, what's MVP after? Legacy or money at 36 years of age? I think maybe money.
Yeah, I'd say so too. I mean, and you can't blame him for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's only got a few years left, and again, the style of MVP is not one that necessarily age well. He's not just a a strong technical wrestler or grappler or anything like that.
All speed.
Speed and explosive kind of accuracy and power and, you know, so, and I'm not saying that he doesn't have those things. I'm just saying that stuff leaves after a while. And, you know, he's a welterweight, not like a bantamweight or anything. So he, you know, he's got a bit more time, but he's already 36.
Yeah.
So I think get that bag of money now while you can, because in 2 years' time, it might fade off. I mean, I feel like we've seen it with Wonder Boy. I feel like Wonder Boy is still doing brilliantly because he's that damn good. But I do feel like when Wonder Boy comes up against the top level guys, particularly the grapplers, the wrestlers, his ability to sprawl and get away from that and defend the takedowns is not what it was. He doesn't have the explosive kind of defensive speed that he had when it comes to defending the takedowns, I think. So, we might see that with MVP as well.
I think, you know, you put an MVP in with a Kamaru Usman or something like that, I see that the limitations as a grappler would probably be exposed. But you don't know. You know, I think we all thought that with Leon, and look how Leon, you know, changed his game and yeah, interesting. Well, by all means, drop us a message on Twitter. We've posted about this on Instagram and Twitter. So get commenting. Head over there and let us know what organisation you'd like to see MVP fighting. Let us know the dream fights you'd like to see him fighting. And yeah, we'll tally them up and have a look and let you know where it went.
Shall we move on to UFC 290?
Yeah, let's do that.
So, do you know what? Before we do go on to UFC 290, I think we should mention that we, and you're probably getting bored of us saying this now, but we want to keep saying it. We've partnered up with a great charity called GamCare, who are there to help people with gambling problems, and not just people that are gamblers, but also family and friends of people suffering with a gambling addiction. You know, if you are someone that you're getting into debt, you're living paycheck to paycheck, or you're thinking that your paycheck would benefit from you gambling, anything like that, GamCare can really help you. They provide a 24/7 helpline for you to call, as I said, 24/7, day or night, if you need any help with a potential gambling addiction, or if you're someone who is family or friend of someone that might be suffering with a gambling addiction. They not only do a 24/7 helpline, they have like an instant messenger kind of like chat service as well, if you're too nervous to speak to someone on the phone. And also they offer counseling sessions, completely free counseling sessions you could do over like a Zoom type thing or over the phone, anything like that, so that you can get help to battle an addiction that can really, really damage and ruin your life. So have you got the number for that, Stu?
I have, yeah. So if you want to call and speak to them direct, ring 0808 802 0133. 0808 8020 133. The number will be in the show notes to this as well. Or just head over to GamCare, GAMCARE.org.uk, GamCare.org.uk. And as soon as you open the website, there's a little pop-up saying talk to someone, and you can have like I said, have a chat on there if you don't feel comfortable speaking on the telephone. That's gamcare.org.uk.
Yep, as I say, they do fantastic work. But we will move on to UFC 290, because what a night. I mean, to be fair, I know we didn't really think about our holidays too much when we were booking them. We couldn't have booked them at the worst time in terms of like a UFC card that was so friggin' good.
Yeah.
It was so good. It exceeded expectations. It was an absolutely fantastic card. Fast finishes. I woke up about 4:30 because I flew the Sunday morning, so that I got up at like 4 something to watch some of the fights, and then we got ready to go and get on our flight. It was incredible. I mean, let's start with Volk. We're not going to go too deep into like.
Sorry, who?
Volk, former. Go on, do you just want to say
2-time former guest of the show?
Yes, that's his full name. The 2-time former guest of the show, Alexander Volkanovski. So yeah, we're not going to go too deep into like the intricacies of the fights themselves, but more look at like where we are in the aftermath of it now. I mean, but it was a phenomenal performance from Volkanovski, wasn't it?
Do you know what? I thought Yair done all right. I thought in that first round, I thought he put on a pretty good account of himself. There were some low kicks, and there was a couple. He still bloody done it, Volk. He still nodded when he got caught. He still
did it, didn't he? We told him to not do that when he was on the show. We said, stop nodding at your opponents when they hit you, because it makes the judges aware they've hit you.
But yeah, we just saw, in my opinion, pound for pound champ just come into his own and just adapt and nullify and finish. And yeah, I mean, I think when they went back to the corner at the end of the second, Yair looked beaten.
Yeah,
he was beaten and bloodied as well. And but I love Yair Rodriguez. I think he's a fantastic sportsman and a fantastic ambassador for mixed martial arts. And but yeah, I think obviously we saw him look phenomenal against Josh Emmett, but I think when he stepped up to fight Volk, it was just a step too big.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to go too much into the intricacies of the fight itself, but the fight ending sequence for me was so beautiful and sort of encapsulated everything that Volk's about.
Yeah,
like it's so well rounded, and in that last kind of like 20 odd second sequence of the fight, he does everything.
Yeah.
So Yair's actually coming at him with a couple of decent kicks and throwing some of the unique stuff that he does, and lands a few on Volk in the lead up to this section that I'm talking about. And Volk defensively does incredibly well. Counter strikes him with, I think it was a right hand, which really wobbled Yair, and Yair started smiling as like a cover for like, oh fuck, I'm actually quite hurt here. And it was like defensive movement, counter strike, sees that Yair is hurt, smells blood, goes for the finish, not only hits the head, but as you said, rips to the body and then immediately takes him down, which to me shows such great fight IQ, because he was like, I'm ripping this guy up on the feet right now, but I know he's so dangerous on the feet and I've had success in the fight on the ground. Let me just get it to the ground. So it was like smash to the head, couple of rips to the body, straight in for the takedown. So Yair didn't know whether to cover up sprawl. Like, he didn't know what to do because there was so much going on for Volk. And then he just did that incredible kind of patented Volk ground and pound now that we're all coming to recognize so well, where he starts on his knees in a guard or something. He's laying down the strikes. Then he just sort of hops up on his feet. And obviously, because he's quite a short bloke, he's just on both his feet, but short and stocky and raining down those heavy punches on fighters. You don't see fighters do that very often. Like ground and pound people from their feet. And I just think it's so special that he did all of these things in such a short period of time within that round. And it just, to me, encapsulates so many brilliant aspects of Volk's game, defensively, offensively, ground and pound, just so well-rounded, fight IQ, everything. And he's just a phenomenal athlete. Obviously, we're slightly biased because we think he's a great guy and because he's been on the show a couple of times.
Everyone thinks he's a great guy. Yair Rodriguez, maybe not, but like everybody thinks he's a great guy. And
do you know what? I think he does think he's a great guy, because he went up to him afterwards and was saying how like, oh, you made me train so hard for this fight. I knew you were so dangerous. What respectable, just brilliant champ. I love him. I think he's so great.
But before we move on to the next, to the more part, as he left the ring, he had a little catch up with someone, didn't he? And there was a little face off. Do you think that's going to happen?
I don't know. See, this is the interesting thing. What's next for Volk? So he's just had some arm surgery. He said for the last year he's been having this problem with his arm, and then in this latest camp it's been really bad. He's been doing all these fights with like Islam Makhachev and that performance against Yair and all that with a slightly busted arm. Like, I mean, what is he capable of if he's fully fit? So yes, he had he's spoken about on our show, when we had him on the show, he spoke about wanting to rematch Makhachev after this fight. That is possibly still up for grabs if Volk wants to turn it around quickly after arm surgery.
Just quickly, Makhachev called out Leon Edwards yesterday in Dubai.
And Volk responded saying, are you running? Do you not want the smoke? And then Ilia Topuria responded to Volk saying, oh, are you running? You don't want the smoke.
Oh, I missed this.
It's all kicking off. But yeah, so clearly the situation is that Islam needs a dance partner for Abu Dhabi in October. Charles Oliveira has said he's not going to be ready for that, which I think is a mistake. Well, it's not a mistake. If Charles isn't ready, he's not ready. But I think Charles Oliveira could be surpassed. I don't think he's punched his ticket to a definite title shot with that win over Dariush, because the MMA media, everything, it moves so quickly. We've got Dustin Poirier against Justin Gaethje coming up. And Islam Makhachev is not the most active of fighters. If he fights in October, he may not fight again until April. And the winner of Dustin versus Justin could then, after whatever beating the winner probably takes from the other one, is then ready to step in for the next title fight. And then Charles Oliveira is there just twiddling his thumbs. So I don't know what Charles's issue is, if he's genuinely injured and he can't do anything about it, or if there's something else going on there. I don't know. But I think he could be surpassed very easily in this run to the title, and he could end up staring down the barrel of fighting another contender before he gets a title shot, if he doesn't act quick and book this October fight. In terms of Volk, if he wants to come back from his arm surgery that quickly and take on Makhachev, then good luck to him. I think that's a mistake. I think if you're having arm surgery, let it heal, get a proper camp in, all that stuff. But Volk's not getting any younger. And I suppose he wants to achieve greatness while he's on this run, and I don't blame him. And if he goes up and fights Makhachev and loses again, he's still going to be considered one of the greatest ever featherweights ever, and probably one of the greatest fighters that we've had, as long as he gets one or two more title defenses at featherweight in. I really think he's that good. I really think he's so brilliant. I just don't want him to move up and fight Islam so quickly that the arm is a factor, or that he hasn't been able to train properly. I really want to see that fight with a good build-up, because the first fight was so good. I want to see that rematch between those two with the proper build-up and with everyone on a proper, legitimate kind of long fight camp to prepare for the other one. I think that's when that fight will be best. Do you think he'll fight Islam next, or Topuria? What do you think?
Does Topuria, has he done enough to get the shot?
Yes. Topuria just beat Josh Emmett, who was the interim title challenger. Sure. I think, and also Volk has beat Max Ortega. You know, unfortunately, Arnold Allen lost to Max, so he can't really just get in there coming off a loss. Okay. So I think, yes, Ilia Topuria is the next guy. He's punched his ticket. He is the next guy, without a shadow of a doubt, to fight for the belt next.
I think, you know, even from like speaking to him on the podcast, he clearly wants that Makhachev fight. You know, he must have watched that back and thought, there's things I could have changed in my game where I could have stopped fucking nodding at him. But there's things he could have done, you know, where not, you know, very, very little things, and he would have won that fight. You know, a few changes, and you know, he gave Makhachev the best fight he's ever had. And as he said as well, Volk said, like, some people think he won that fight, and so I think he must look at that and think, well, you know, I've now got the experience of going in the octagon with him. I know what's coming. If I do this, I think I've got a great chance of winning. And you can see, you know, he's a phenomenal athlete, Volk. I think that's the fight he wants, and I think that's the fight he'll probably get. Calling out Leon Edwards, in all honesty, I think maybe Makhachev thinks Leon Edwards would be an easier fight than Volk. And I think, you know, that's a way to I mean, yes, we saw incredible takedown defense from Leon. But I think if you was to look at what the bookies would put on that, I reckon he would be I reckon you'd get better odds on Volk fighting him than what you would Leon.
I mean, I think it's more to do with Islam's probably just happy to fight in Dubai. He has mentioned going up to, it's not an easy cut for him making lightweight. His future is at welterweight. I think that's a way for him to step out of Khabib's shadow a little bit, as well as to become a two-weight champion, which Khabib never did. And I think that he's looking at Edwards because Oliveira said he can't make it. Volk's injured and only just fought. Justin, the winner of that's probably going to be smashed up by October, so they're not going to be ready for it.
I love the fact this is a given that they're both going to be smashed. It's for such a good fight. Yeah.
It's such a good fight, isn't it? But it'll be so unexpected if in the first round one of them knocks the other one out, taking no damage. That'll be so I mean, it might happen, but it's very unlikely. So Islam's out of options. And for Islam, I don't think it's about the opponent so much as the date. He wants to fight. And also the UFC know that Islam Makhachev in Abu Dhabi, huge draw. Huge draw. So
do you think Leon would fancy it?
I think Leon would do it. I think I think he doesn't like the idea of Colby because Colby hasn't earned the fight, and Leon is all about earning it. And as much as you could say, oh, well, Islam hasn't had a fight at welterweight, hasn't earned it. But he's the champion in the weight class below. These things happen. Once you're a champion in a weight class below, you can just kind of move up. I don't think it's always fair. Islam's only defended the belt once, and there are contenders. So I don't think Islam should just move up. But if he does, I get it. And I think it's a bigger fight for Leon. I think he likes the idea of fighting in Abu Dhabi. I don't think he likes Colby Covington as a person. So I think he doesn't want to give him that shine anyway. Who does? Yeah, weirdos. So I think Leon would take it, and I think he'd be happy with it.
Think he could win it?
Yeah, for sure. I think it'd be a tough fight for him because I think Islam's a very, very good fighter. But I think Leon Edwards has got good defensive wrestling. He's been training for the last few years to fight Kamaru Usman's, Colby Covington's, all these top-level wrestlers. I think for sure Leon Edwards can win that fight. I think he'd be a better striker than Islam, even though I think Islam's striking is underrated.
100%.
But yeah, I mean, would it be a tough fight? Yeah. I actually think he could do better against Colby than Islam. I think Islam's a harder fight than Colby. But yeah, I don't see why he wouldn't take it. It's a bigger fight for more money. And he's the champion in that situation, pay-per-view points and all that stuff. Okay, for sure, get that fight.
Let's have a look at this then. So, wrestler Colby Covington, right? Worst case scenario, he beats Leon Edwards and becomes the champ. Colby versus Islam. Who wins that?
Oh, man, that's a really good question. Because do you know what? I think Islam looked like he was getting very tired at the end of the Volkanovski fight. But I do think that weight cut takes a lot out of him. So up at 170, we might see an even more kind of rejuvenated, fresher Islam Makhachev. Colby is a cardio machine, though.
Yep.
I think neither of them would really take the other one down or be able to take the other one down. So it would be a stand-up fight. I think Islam's striking is better than Colby's, but I think Colby has got a very good chin. And I think Colby is one of those kind of just constantly on you and wearing you down. I think it'd be I would favor Islam, but I think it would be a good fight. But I hope I don't see it because I want Leon to be the champion, smash Colby.
Of course. Absolutely.
We've lingered for longer on this than I thought we would. I mean, is there just to whip through a few other things on UFC 290? How good was the Pantoja Moreno fight?
Yeah, you called it as well, didn't you?
I didn't want to say, but yeah, I did, mate.
Yeah,
did.
Fantastic fight. And
also, Pantoja was driving for Uber Eats only a couple of fights ago. Did you hear that?
No.
Pantoja only a couple of fights ago was driving for Uber Eats. He's got like 4 or 5 sons or something like that.
Yeah, they all come in the octagon,
yeah, it was a beautiful scene. Like was driving for Uber Eats only a couple of fights ago, and this is a guy that's now the champion and wasn't like he came out of nowhere and was unranked.
Yeah,
it's all been in the top 10, 5, whatever it is for a good few years. I know he's not been the most active lately, and maybe that's why. But it doesn't look great on the sport, does it?
No.
When you're like a guy that's an athlete in the top 5, and is now the champion. 2 years ago was driving for Uber Eats whilst he was still in the top 5.
Yeah,
it's not a great look for the sport. But yeah, I don't know what's to be done about that. And then there was go on.
No, I'm just saying that we should sort of start to sort of move through this. I know we want to touch a little bit on some of the fights that are coming our way this coming weekend in London.
We have to mention the proud of me dad now moment. Did you see that?
Go on.
The in his post fight interview, Pantoja saying, "You proud of me, dad? You proud of me now, dad? You proud of me now?" And then I think he went on like Helwani show and spoke about his dad having some, I think it was maybe some drinking problems and stuff like that. And clearly there's family dysfunctional or disrupted kind of family dynamic there between him and his dad. And God, that was quite an emotional thing for him to say, "You're proud of me now, dad," and whatever's gone into that relationship, culminating in him achieving this amazing thing and saying on the mic to millions of people, "You proud of me now, dad?" I just found that really moving. I thought that was an amazing moment. And I think we also have to talk about Dricus du Plessis, Robert Whittaker, don't we?
I mean, I'm not a fan of Biggest Dricus, but I mean, undeniable. I mean, he done a number, didn't he, on Bobby Knuckles? And yeah, I mean, that shakes things up, doesn't it?
I rewatched the fight this morning. It's not as one-sided as I remember. Robert Whittaker is actually winning the fight for the first kind of like 3 minutes of it, not by doing a huge amount, and then Dricus gets him down and lands some heavy ground and pound, obviously wins the fight. And then in the second round, Rob's doing very, very well until he lands this really awkward shot on Rob that's like, I don't know if it's like a stutter kind of right or whatever it was. It was really weird. So it's come out of complete nowhere and didn't look that powerful. But clearly it was, and Rob was really rocked and then just on skates and struggling for the rest of what remained of that fight. Really impressive from Dricus. I think there's hardly anyone that thought Dricus could beat Robert Whittaker. I don't think Robert Whittaker looked right, and I don't think enough people are talking about that. He was breathing through his mouth a bit, almost doing a bit of a Dricus. I wouldn't be surprised if Rob's the type of guy to keep stuff to himself and not want to take away from another fighter's success. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out something was going on with Rob. He wasn't well. He had a bad weight cut, something. I don't want to take away from Dricus. It sounds like I am, but I not enough people talk about it. And I just think you watch that fight and I'm like, he doesn't look the same. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but he didn't look right. But credit to Dricus. He did phenomenally well. Clearly the nose job helped him with his cardio and stuff, and that did make a difference. What did you think of the face-off between Izzy and Dricus? Because obviously there was a lot of bad language and N-words being thrown around there a lot. What did you think of that as a face-off?
I mean, it's probably not marketable because of the language that was used. But I don't know. I didn't enjoy it when he was when it cut to the crowd and he was just eyeballing him, and then Dricus was actually. I'm not a fan of Dricus, but when he was talking, he was very respectful to Robert Whittaker. Said he was if I remember, don't quote me on this, but he was saying he was someone that he was a hero of his, and
he had a fighters only poster of him on his wall. He was saying,
and to have someone have that moment, and then for Izzy to come in and completely rob him of his moment, and I don't know, I weren't into it. I'm a big fan of Adesanya, but I weren't on board with how that went down. I just thought, this is not really what I want to see, but it's gonna, I guess, hype the potential fight, and but it weren't what I wanted. What about you?
I'm always a fan of face-offs in the cage. I love it. I'm a big fan of that stuff. I know it's not always your cup of tea. I quite like it. I didn't like. I mean, it's difficult. We're two kind of middle-aged white men. So it's really difficult for us to understand and talk about with any genuine knowledge about what it is for someone like Israel Adesanya to have come from Nigeria and moved to New Zealand and then for a white South African man to basically say him and Kamaru Usman and all that they're not the real Africans.
Sure.
That we can't understand what that feels like. Yeah. Having said that, the use of that word constantly over and over and over again, I didn't enjoy it. I don't know what that was achieving.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of people that loved it, but what it does for me is it makes me feel, and this I said this in the lead up to this fight about the racially motivated kind of promos that could be used by the UFC and in general for a potential fight between Dricus and Israel Adesanya. And I said it made me very uncomfortable. And I don't think that the MMA social media community as a whole is mature enough to kind of deal with this. And what I feel like we're going to be left with is a situation where there's some idiots out there thinking that this is almost like a white v black thing or something like that. And that makes me so uncomfortable because that's not what this should be about. I'm not here for that at all.
It's definitely referencing, an element of apartheid, really, isn't it? And,
yeah.
And looking back at, historical stuff that went down. And yeah, I mean, I don't really want to get bogged down into the politics of this fight, but seeing that verbalized so much in that octagon, it's, like I say, I'm more blown away at the fact that you put me and you in the same age bracket when you said we're both middle aged. I'm really impressed with that.
Well, I haven't dyed my hair grey yet, but that day's fast approaching, I'm sure. So yeah, I don't know. But I'm more interested in the fight now. Not from the face off, just from DDP's performance. I'm now going, okay, you might have more to offer Adesanya than I thought you did. And now I'm more interested in that fight. But I don't want any part of some kind of racially motivated build-up. I don't want it. I don't think it's good for the sport. I don't like that at all. But as just a fight, because of what Dricus did against Rob, I'm way more here for it as a contest.
Well, we have been talking forever and a day about the fact that, Robert Whittaker, he's by far leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else in that division, but just can't seem to get the nod over Izzy. And, he's been removed from that position now. And so, yeah, it makes for an interesting fight. And, I think I thought that Bobby Knuckles was going to ragdoll him for a round and then gas him and finish him. And, well, we got that wrong. But yeah. So it does make for an exciting fight. But if we can just go back to incredible people with peroxide hair, Dan Hooker. Oh man, my life! I mean, fight of the night for me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think Pantoja Moreno has to take fight of the night, but isn't it great that on the same card we're going this one, no, this one, that is,
yeah,
because that was a corker as well. That was kind of consistently more all action, I think. Whereas Pantoja Moreno, because it was a 5-rounder, had moments where someone was on the back for long periods of time or something like that. But oh man, what a fight! What a fight! And Jalen Turner, I thought, was doing Jalen Turner things and then sort of gassed out a little bit. And Dan Hooker came back. I mean, what a performance. Dan Hooker's the man, isn't he? Like
broken arm, broken orbital. That's the scratch.
Oh my God. That guy's fucking mental.
Peroxide hair, blood stained. He looked like a savage, didn't he?
Oh my God. Blonde Hooker. I mean, we didn't think Dan Hooker could get any tougher. Yeah. Give him some blonde hair and he's just like breaking arms and orbital bones and just carrying on like Wolverine. It's unbelievable. Yeah, absolutely crazy. Feel sorry for Jalen Turner because he put on a good fight, but I think he just kind of gassed out a bit. But you got to love Dan Hooker, man. That was unbelievable. And other than that, probably the feel-good moment of the whole evening was Robbie Lawler on his retirement fight, just smashing Nico Price. We don't see this often, do we? When fighters that are legends, that we all love, that are former champions, that are we've given a part of our hearts to in a way when we watch them and we've seen them do so well and put on these amazing fights. And then we've seen them decline and it sort of breaks our hearts a little bit. We don't see them ever go out in a great way. Anderson Silva lost a bit of a crappy fight with Uriah Hall. Frankie Edgar obviously knocked out savagely by Chris Gutierrez.
Brad Pickett at the O2 losing to Cheeto.
Oh, you know what I mean? Michael Bisping to Kelvin Gastelum. Like, we don't get fairy tale MMA retirements. It does not happen. And Robbie Lawler got it. And it was just so sweet. It was so sweet because the matchmaking was great. We had matchmaking finally where it wasn't frigging Nate Diaz, Hamzat Chimaev, which they wanted to do, or some of these other fights that we've seen where they've got, this guy's, on his way out. Let's give him a young up and coming contender. It was a fight that Robbie could, and obviously did, win. It was a fair matchup on paper. And for him to not only get that quick knockout win, which was so brilliant to watch at the age of like 41 or 42 or whatever Robbie Lawler is now, but then for them to show the VT, to show that video of all his great moments in the octagon, dating back to before when he had that, he started in the UFC, then he kind of left for a while, then he came back and became champ. And what a phenomenal moment in time for us to all sit back and watch that with a Robbie Lawler that's in tears, thinking about his retirement and looking at his greatest moments. And we need more of that in MMA. Can we treat our legends with just a little bit more fairness and just give them matchups where you go, this is a fight you could actually win, and we're going to prepare a really fond farewell VT. And maybe if they lose, we can still go, look, mate, I know you've lost, but look at these great moments, and we can all share in that as audience members at home and live in the arenas. I want to see more of that. I really do. And I thought that Robbie Lawler got that incredibly rare fairy tale MMA ending.
Absolutely. Well, we should also just quickly mention that obviously Wrestling Supremo Bo Nickel displayed some heavy hands as well. So I think that makes the prospect of his future even more interesting to MMA fans. I mean, it was a last-minute switch of opponent.
And I believe that opponent is a lightweight or a welterweight or something as well. Like,
as we've mentioned before,
I didn't put too much stock in it. I mean, it's a great win. Well done. It done what the UFC want. He's on the main cards, and well done. No disrespect to Bo, but it doesn't mean much to me at this stage, really.
Yeah, he's got he's got plenty more to prove yet in the MMA. Okay, well, look, should we just look ahead to a couple of the fights from this upcoming weekend at the O2 in London?
Yes, absolutely. I suppose we should start with the main event, Aspinall versus Tybura. I suppose the big question that no one will have the answer to until the fight happens is, how's Tom's knee going to be? Like, he tore, what is it, ACL, MCL, or something, or maybe both in that fight with Curtis Blades.
He's obviously saying it's fine. He wouldn't say otherwise.
Looks in fantastic shape.
Yeah.
Looks really good. Looks really trim. Like, I think he's been doing something over the last year while he's been out where he's just really sorted out his, not that he looked bad before, but I think his strength and conditioning. I think we're going to see possibly a Tom Aspinall 2.0 as long as the knee's good. We could be seeing an improvement.
People getting lean. Martin Tybura, like, he looks super lean. Like,
what's going on with these heavyweights actually doing a diet or something? Like, you're a heavyweight. You're supposed to be fat.
Like, yeah, he looked at the from my perspective, he looked the leanest he's ever been. I mean, if we look at the event as a whole, and obviously, I don't want to moan about it because we're going and we're going to get to be present there as media, which is very exciting. But looking at past London cards, obviously we're fans of all the British fighters that are on that card, and we've all of them have been guests on this show. But yes, obviously Tom, a highly ranked heavyweight, is topping the card's fantastic. There's no belts on the line on this card, and something that we mentioned this morning was something that really surprised me as well. Is there's tickets still available for this Saturday's event at the O2? Now, previously, to my knowledge, them tickets were rocking all shit. You could not get them for love nor money, and they went like that. I don't know if that was something to do with Leon and there being a belt on the line, or the explosion in Paddy Pimblett, mania. I don't know. Is this card, aside from Tom and maybe Molly, is this card not salacious enough for maybe the casuals? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, I think that we've been very lucky with the cards we've got.
Sure.
Like when you look, I mean, you can't expect belts on the line because it's a fight night outside of, America and Vegas, and they're very rare to get a belt on the line. And we were very lucky to get that with Leon Edwards. And not only that, also to have someone like Justin Gaethje in the co-main event. I think we can count ourselves very fortunate that we had that. And that's another reason why the tickets were gone so quickly was, it was a UFC pay-per-view event in the UK, which, the last time that happened was Bisping many, many years prior up in Manchester. So that is why. If you compare it to the actual London fight nights that we've had previously, it maybe doesn't have the starry appeal as much as some others did, because we had Arnold Allen, Dan Hooker on one of them, which was a phenomenal fight with implications for Arnold Allen in terms of really moving him into that title picture. We had Paddy on other cards as well, who's a huge star, and Molly as well, coming off of wins and showcasing her talent and being seen as someone that maybe or maybe not could really do well in the flyweight women's rankings. She's now coming off a loss, albeit to Erin Blanchfield, who is a legit title contender now after what she did to Jessica Andrade. So no shame in that at all. But so maybe the momentum of some of the British fighters isn't there as much. Paddy's not fighting on the card. Tom's coming off of a bad injury. Technically a loss to Curtis Blaze, even though I don't really see it as a loss. And I don't think many British fans would. I think we're all quite excited to see Tom back. But yeah, it's not got an Arnold Allen boosting the card. It's not got a Paddy Pimblett boosting the card. So maybe that is why. Also, when we went last year in March, it was the first card to be in London for 3 years. Then you get another one in July off the back of that March card back in 22 was unbelievable. The place was rocking from start to finish. Other than like 2 British fighters, every other British fighter won on that card as well. It was unbelievable. The place was rocking from start to finish. It was one of the best sporting events I've ever been to in my life.
100%.
July card, as I said, had Arnold Allen. It suffered with Tom's injured leg and all that, but we had Paddy win, we had Molly win, we had all these great moments as well. So that sold out really quick because it was off the back of the March card. Then we get a pay-per-view event. First pay-per-view in years in the UK. That's going to sell really quickly. I don't want the UFC to do any less than 2 cards in the UK a year. I love it. I absolutely love going there. I love that it gives the UK fighters a chance to showcase their talents on a big stage and to have the home crowd cheering them on. But for the casual fan, when you take into account the price of the tickets, is it being a bit oversaturated? I don't know. I don't know. I, for one, am very excited, but very privileged to be able to go in our capacity with the MMA Fan Podcast. I can't speak for people outside of that, whether they're looking at the prices and saying it's too much or what, I don't know. But there are tickets still available, it seems. The cheapest ones I saw today were about 135 quid for quite far back. So I don't know if there's other deals out there. That was on like the O2 website. There might be other deals out there and stuff. I don't know. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. But I'm obviously hoping for the sake of the fighters that it does sell out very quickly, whether that's due to people reducing prices quite late or what are getting deals on certain ticket sites. I'm not sure.
Crisis. We're in the thick of it,
Well, that's the other thing,
might not have that disposable income that they maybe had a year ago,
That's it. Cost of living, energy, all of the energy crisis, all of these things could be playing a factor. As I say, it'd be interesting to see
I had
whether
to
the
bring that
pressure is
up
sold
because
out.
I know at Harrison
Yeah.
Towers, this stuff
Fucking
isn't.
hell.
I know your staff go and do your shopping for you.
You've just been to Corsica and you've had your hair dyed grey / Charles Oliveira blonde. I don't know what you're talking about, fucking Harrison Towers. But look, when it comes to the main event, I do think there's a lot to be said for it. I think Tom coming back from injury is fascinating. And is he going to show the Tom Aspinall that we saw in the lead up to that Curtis Blades fight? If he does, got to be close to a title shot. He's ranked 5th already. But Tybura's no joke. He's only lost once in 3 years, winning 7 out of 8, and his only loss was to Volkov. Now, we know Tom dispatched of Volkov really, really tidily back in, was it March of last year?
Who did Volkov fight after that and doing that? Oh, was it Tybura and done an actual number on him?
Maybe it was. Yeah,
Maybe
I can't remember. I haven't got it in front of me. But Tybura's no joke. I don't think he should be Tom Aspinall level, and I think depending on how well Tybura does against Tom will tell me more about Tom's place after the injury than it will about Tybura. I think I know who Tybura is, and I think I know where his level is, if I could be so rude. Yeah. It's interesting to see where Tom's at after the knee. And if Tybura does well against Tom, even if Tom wins, I'm going to be concerned about Tom coming back in his knee, and maybe you just need a bit more time. But I'm expecting Tom to go out there and do a number on Tybura. I think he totally can do that. And then in the co-main event, Molly McCann versus Julia Stoliarenko. I don't understand this fight hugely because we've seen Stoliarenko collapse almost, or did basically, on the scales, making 135. So why she's making 125 or how she's making 125, I don't know. Stoliarenko's only, I think, won 1 in her last 5, maybe. So this feels like it's sort of set up for Molly to do well, which would be great and would get the crowd buzzing for the main event. But it just seems like a strange fight to make for someone that struggled with weight at 135 to then compete at 125. But maybe there's something going on we don't know about. She could have changed nutritionist's diet, done something else. Maybe she was ill previously. I want to give her the benefit of the doubt.
Well, and maybe she can ask her tomorrow.
Maybe I will, mate. Maybe I will.
I mean, there's obviously there's lots of fighters that have been on previous UFC London cards. Obviously, I think we've got Lerone Murphy, Jai Herbert, Nathaniel Wood. Great to see Davey Grant on the London card. Mark Diakese. There's some great fighters on there, and I mean Nathaniel's fighting Andre Fili. I mean that's a great fight, and be interested to see how that goes. Did you see any social media today?
Not really, no.
So the fighters had arrived at the Fighters Hotel for Media Day tomorrow, so they're just settling in. And I saw a little video of I don't know if you remember a little while ago, you asked Nathaniel Wood some probing questions about Lerone Murphy, and then I think you then took them questions back to Lerone Murphy when we interviewed him a week later, and it seemed to sort of ruffle Lerone's feathers a little bit, and so you lit that fuse. And then today I watched it really blaze because what it looks like from the video and is Nathaniel goes up to it looks like Nathaniel's approached Lerone as Lerone's waiting to get in the lift and has sort of said I presume the stuff that wasn't captured on camera was like, what's the score, man? Something along them lines, like, we cool, like, what's going on? And because Nathaniel said that he was going to put on a masterclass if that fight against Lerone would have happened. And I do feel that that's a perfectly good thing to say if you're in a fight. He had already said about going for a beer with him afterwards, but as a fighter, you should have self-belief and you should be able to go, I'm going to put on a masterclass. but that was said after he'd pulled out of the fight due to injury, a legit injury. We saw the injury happen, on video, and Lerone felt uncomfortable with that. And so that come to light in the fight hotel today, I believe. And yeah, Lerone was not happy. He was like, you could see Nathaniel was seem very calm, just saying, look, I was saying I'm going to put on a masterclass. Like, well, why wouldn't I say that? And yeah, Lerone was, I guess he's cutting weight again. So this was when these conversations were being had. So
yeah, don't do the conversations now, boys. Not when you're both really hungry. Don't do the conversations now. It's not my fault.
It's your fault. It's your fault.
It's not. I didn't do anything. I said it really nicely as well. Like, he wishes you all the best, but I do feel a bit bad because I'm quite a sensitive soul, and I feel a bit bad about it. But I think actually I may have seen some of this clip, and I think Lerone's problem with it is nothing to do with me. It's to do with, as you say, the masterclass, masterclass comment. I can sort of see both sides of it, if I'm honest, because, like, as you say, I think what Nathaniel was saying was completely harmless and was just being like, I'm gutted, I'm not fighting. I felt really good, and I was gonna, put on a really good show. That's basically what Nathaniel was trying to say, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I can also see why someone saying they're going to put on a masterclass in a fight against you is slightly riles you up a little bit for Lerone's point of view. So I hope they sort it out, but it doesn't seem like they are. But it might lead up to a cracking kind of fight.
Absolutely.
It might lead up to a really good fight between the two of them.
I mean, you're such a warrior, and I love, when I saw that video, I thought, I can't wait for him to see this because I am going to wind him up and blame him for it. But, for listeners of this podcast, then you're very aware we're not the type of podcasters that prod for salacious information, or try and start any beef. That's not how we operate at all. And, all of them questions that you, not me, asked, were obviously completely genuine, and we were saying, we didn't want to see that fight because you're two absolute prospects that we didn't want to see two Brits fight when we'd rather see you both go on to establish yourself even further in the rankings, and then it could be a huge fight, and obviously we love the fact that it was like afterwards we'll have a beer. That's the kind of people that we are. We like that kind of the way that fighters carry themselves like that. It's fantastic. But for some reason, a couple of days after, it just looked on Twitter, and I was like, oh no, they're still going on about that comment. Oh shit.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So we'll hope. It does look like at some point, unless one of them, just completely surpasses the other in terms of performances and stuff. If they both continue on a winning trajectory, it makes sense to do that fight at some point. And I hope for both of their sakes that
they don't bump into you at media day because you're going to put a beat down on
them. No. I hope for my sake that they bump into media, but I hope for their sakes that if this beef continues, that they can get something out of it. Because I do think they're both really great guys. I don't, necessarily want to see them fight, other than the fact that I think it would be a cracking fight. I think they're both very talented. I think it'd be a very, very good fight. I think for their sakes, I hope they can monetize it. And I hope that it is something that they get put in a co-main event or something like that, where they will earn more money off the back of this being a more anticipated fight because there is some beef between them. But we'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely. And obviously we wish Nathaniel, Lerone, and all the British fighters on that card the best of luck this Saturday. If you want to get a little bit more information on some of them conversations that were had with Lerone and Nathaniel, I mean, we've had them both on twice now, have we? I think
both on twice.
We've had and Lerone on twice, and the first episodes with guests with those two, and all of our guests generally are a more deep dive into the fighters' careers and how they got into mixed martial arts, and Lerone's story is unbelievable. I mean, that guy's lived a life, and I mean, if a cat has 9 lives, I don't know how many Lerone Murphy's got, because he's had quite some journey, and I'd urge you to go and listen to that. And speaking of other fighters, we've had Tommy Aspinall on, and also have a deep dive in that back catalogue, because we've had Paddy on a few times, we've had Molly on, we've had absolute UK MMA legend Michael Bisping, Dan Hardy. And I imagine he'll be the third man in the octagon this Saturday. Mark Goddard, great chat with Mark. And then we've also, as mentioned,
Davey Grant.
Davey Grant,
who's
one
fighting.
of the loveliest guys you'll ever chat to. And who else have we had?
Jai Herbert.
Twice we've had him on there. Alexander, what's his name? Alexander Volker.
Alexander the Great, Vol. I don't know. His name escapes me, but he's some champion, some featherweight champion.
Yeah.
Had him on a couple of times. So yeah, go and check out those episodes.
And Molly, of course. Lastly, we've had Molly on a few times. So go check them ones out. And while you're there, why not subscribe over on YouTube and whatever listening platform you listen on. And drop us a comment. Let us know what you think of the show. Tag people in you'd like to see us interview with. If you've not had them on and you think they'll make an interesting conversation, let us know. Because we want to give you what you want. We done?
I think we're done. We went longer than I thought we would. I suppose we will be probably doing like I think we will be going longer than what? Now you've made me think about other things. I think we will be doing a post-London episode after the card on Saturday. But also we have for you coming up soon is a great chat with Kaelan Loughran, the current Cage Warriors bantamweight champion. And we will be hopefully getting you some very special interviews coming away. I don't want to jinx it, because the last time we did this, I did so mention it, and I did jinx it.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to say it, but we've got an awesome interview coming your way as well that we're hopefully going to sort out this week. But I'm not going to say who it is, because we jinxed this too many times now when we've said that in the past. I've learnt my lesson. Right. I think we're done.
See you later.
Bye.